you can see here all that I have on my bench. And I'll probably pull out a few other tools, but I tried to pull out everything that I needed. And I'm gonna put my tools to my side as I show them to you. So a striker to light our torch. Lighter works fine too, just don't let hot glass fall on it. Tweezers, I have a pair of serrated and non-serrated. I usually have 2 pairs of tweezers on my bench. I try to only keep a couple tools on there, but I usually still have my 2 pairs of tweezers. A knife of some sort to carve into. A butter knife works great. This is a clam shucking knife. Oyster knives are easy to find down here. They're a little bit thicker and have a little bit different of a curvature. But a butter knife, maybe a serrated and a non-serrated butter knife. Your graphite paddle and pads. Pair of nippers, always kind of have around. I usually have these hanging over to the side where I always know where they are. I'll use these shears occasionally. Little bonsai shears are great. These are like the $35 pair from Mountain Art Glass. These are just as nice. I feel like, dude, it's just as good of a job as the, expensive pair that I have from Jim Moore, which are great. They're from the Hot Shop. But you don't need anything fancy. Little bonsai shears we go to the shopping at the Hong Kong market. It's a huge grocery store, and they have a great cooking section there with all kinds of things, like you can buy woks and things like that. But they have bonsai shears and gravy boats and things that we can use in the glass studio. And then I have a variety of flatteners over here. So, for years I just used my little mashers, which are great. And then eventually upgraded to a pair of pliers with some grooved metal plate on there. There's grooves. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. You can see that. To flatten and make lines. And then my good friend, who I think's in the class today, Terry Henry, brought me back these from Italy. She didn't mind because she got to stop by Carlo Donna to pick them up, and then again to order them, and then again to pick them up. So, but these are great. I didn't have any of these for years until I started going to the gathering. I picked up the first pair. So you don't need anything crazy. Simple tools are great. So for solid stuff, that's about it. And for hollow stuff as well, I don't use too many more tools. I'll have some graphite reamers and holders and things like that as well. So let me go to a different angle. And so now I've made penguins on and off for years. I think this was one of the first ones. I found him on top of the kiln. We're going to do a couple of penguins today. We're going to start with soft glass. After Katrina, I was in Scottsdale in a gallery for a couple of months. They basically were trying to help out a New Orleans artist, and they found me and they flew me out there, and they had a glass studio kind of in the front window, a furnace. And I had done a little bit of furnace glass, but I told them clearly that I was a lamp worker, so I brought my torch with me. And I ended up doing a little bit of both. I made hundreds of penguins. People would buy them by the tens. I think the movie March of the Penguins might have come out around that time. So this same design, just simple, kind of just to get us thinking about sculpting, basically making a ball and then adding a ball for the head. I talk about in there breaking your animals down, kind of like the cartoonists do with Mickey Mouse. If you can see him in his simplest form, it's just a circle with 2 circles for ears. But all kinds of other things can be done very similarly. There's a little skunk. And in our day at the zoo class, I do little bears, and they're just very similar in design, but can be taken a little bit further. So these are a lot of fun to do, and I'm going to show you how to do a couple of them. So let me put those guys out of the way where I'm not going to bump them. They can watch. These are great practice. They're great stocking stuffers. They're great for demos, especially when there's kids around. And you can usually just cool them in vermiculite. I'm going to put them in my kiln. So the kiln is at 1050 today for the borosilicate glass. But what I'm going to do is put these right by the door so that hopefully they don't get much hotter than like 950 as I'm going in and out all day. May get a little bit of slumping, but probably not. I've generally gotten lucky as long as I'm going in and out all day. If I leave that door shut all day and I just bring, then they might slump a little bit. The other thing you can do is you can work borosilicate glass all day. if you work both borosilicate and soft glass, you either want to work one day or one the other day, but if you want to work both on the same day, you might want to work borosilicate in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you bring that kiln down from 1050 to 950 or whatever your annealing temperature for your soft glass is, and then you can work soft glass in the afternoon. And the borosilicate glass that's in the kiln has already been annealed, and then it's just hanging out at 950, which is actually the strain point of the glass. So annealing happens, there's a range for it, and the bottom end of that range is called the strain point. And so it's perfectly fine to have the glass hanging out at 950 for even longer. It'll make it that much stronger. It's still annealing, just not as quickly as it does at 1050. Although it's probably already annealed if it's been in the kiln at 1050, unless it's something super thick, because the borosilicate glass anneals very quickly. Oftentimes I'll leave my kiln at 1050 all day, and then at the end of the day, I turn it off. If there's more elaborate pieces in there, maybe I'll bring it down to 950 for half an hour, and then I turn it off. And if it's something I've spent like 40 hours on, then maybe I bring it down about 100 degrees an hour to 400 or 500 degrees before I open the kiln door. But the glass is pretty safe at that point. If it's going to crack, it will have already cracked. So I think that's everything as far as safety and a little introduction. I don't want to leave anything out. I'll come back to it if I feel like I left something out. But let's get started. So I really love Nortel. They're a great torch company. I work on a Carlisle CC predominantly. It's just the torch that I got 20 years ago. But I also started even before that on miners and hotheads. And so the new miner is this torch called the Arrow, and it has this super needle center fire. It's got all these knobs that can give me a surface mix or a premix or all different flames, and it gets really hot for a tiny torch. But this little area here, the torch head, if you can see it, it's like the miner but without the little sheath on it. It's identical to a miner. The tubing inside of it's a little bit different. So it has the center fire, so let me show you. But I'm gonna start on this torch and then I'll work my way up to my Carlisle. I wanted to show you guys on a small torch to begin with. So oftentimes when we first start, there's a little bit of air in the line. The air won't ignite, or if there's air and gas, it'll kind of blow itself out. So you gotta let the gas come through the line, and then we have a nice little flame. So this is the miner's center fire. Again, there's air in that line, as opposed to oxygen. Boop. Of course, it doesn't want to light for you guys. So very slowly add your oxygen. Fidgety torch. I'm pulling out my lighter for ease. Again, you can use a lighter, but I wouldn't leave it on the table. If glass hits it, it won't normally explode, but it can kind of go flying. There we go. So now that's oxygen, making the flame burn hotter. So this arrow, that's basically a miner, also has this nice little sharp center fire. I'm just going to use it as a miner for the most part today. So I'm going to turn that center fire off and light the outer fire. So you can see it's basically a miner flame. But we can add more gas to it, so it's a triple mix. We can add more air to the mix, and it makes that miner burn even just a little bit hotter. I'm going to try and use it as if it was a miner today, this morning. Basically because I don't want to boil my soft glass. But let's start with the penguin. Let's get started. So, Moretti. This is actually Messy Color Tuxedo. But the Moretti family, now called Effetri, the company, has been making glass in Italy for hundreds of years. And so they really have their formulas down. They're a great palette of color. It's a little bit less expensive than the borosilicate colors, although there's plenty of expensive colors. But it's a great company from Italy. This is Messy. Creation is Messy is the name of the color. There's a number of great U.S. companies now making glass, including Double Helix and Creation is Messy. So you really just have to play with these colors. A lot of the online threads, you can ask questions and get advice and learn from other people's experiences, but you really have to see for yourself. So I'm going to show you two ways to gather up a big ball. The first way is just to slowly but surely gather it up. The longer you heat this, the bigger it'll get. You want to be careful not to tilt it down this way or it'll end up falling off the end. And you want to be careful not to tilt it back too much. You can to let that glass fall back on itself and gather up, but for the most part, you want to keep it fairly horizontal from beginning to end. Maybe a slight tilt. And you just slowly but surely gather that ball up. Once it gets about twice the diameter of the rod itself, it's really going to start flopping around 3 times the diameter, and it's really going. So you have to just come out of the flame and let it cool down, and then go back heating it. And you can gather this whole rod up into a ball that way. So this first penguin, I'm just going to make mostly all black. I'll give him little orange feet and a little yellow or orange beak. And then the next one, I'll give him a little belly. And I'll show you how another way to kind of gather it up that I think is a little bit quicker. Depends on what color you're using. You want to be careful not to trap air, but basically just going to fold the glass over on itself and then round it out. So make a ball. If you want to make it bigger a little bit quicker, you can let it fall back on itself like that, and then you've got that much more glass. But some colors you really just have to gather up slowly, letting it fall back into itself. If you fold it over on itself like this, it will show either certain color separations or air or other. It can show with some colors that you did it that way. Clear, you really just want to gather into itself. Black, you can get away with a lot. You can't see what's going on inside there. So make a ball. Come out of the flame, get it under control. You're going to kind of let it fall off a little bit. So you get a little bit of a teardrop shape, not too much. And that's the body and the neck. So then I want to add a couple of little feet. So I add 2 dots to the bottom. Get your new color hot nice and slowly and keep your other color warm in the back of the flame. The timing is very different from the soft glass, but glass is glass. So if you can get used to different types of glass, you'll have a deeper understanding of glass itself and really be able to adjust to the type of glass you're doing and what you're doing with it. So 1 dot. To do a larger dot, I kind of do this circular melt off. The size of your dot's really determined by how hard you touch down. So if you want a little dot, you barely touch down. And if you want a bigger dot, you push down a little bit harder when you go to attach it. And it'll leave a wider area there. So 2 dots. And then with our paddle, or even some people like to use their knife for smaller detail flattening, these big paddles can really suck the heat out of the glass. I flatten it. Let's see, the overhead camera, you can see it. And I push forward ever so slightly. So now so those feet kind of come out to the front. I just flatten the bottom. And now I want to attach a handle to the bottom. So I have another piece of black. You could use clear or a different color, whatever you have. Black is good because if I leave any behind, I can just flatten it into itself and you won't ever really see it. So touch that to that, right in the middle, under the feet. If you're touching to the feet, you may want to use orange as your puntee. It really doesn't matter that much because you're not actually going to see it. And then I remove my original rod of tuxedo, leaving enough for the head. And then I round out the head. If you want to add a little bit more glass, you feel like it's not quite big enough proportionately, and that you just have to eye. Proportion is one of the hardest things. You can dab a little bit on there, add another little dot. It's worth at a time. And I want to flash this main body real well in between each step. So now I like to add my wings. So I'm going to add 2 large dots on either side. And I'll add my other dots so that I can kind of make sure they're the same size while they're the same shape. Once you flatten it, it kind of squishes out bigger and it's hard to tell. And again, we're eyeing that proportion. It's kind of why they use measuring cups when you're baking, because it's hard to eye a liquid. It's hard to eye it on the fly here too while we're worried about 10 other things. Really one other thing, it cracking. And what we're going to do next, and what we're going to do in 10 steps. So then if I feel like they're the same size, I can flatten. And while it's hot, I could flatten the other one. Now some people flatten, pull, but I want to flatten and then pull it while it's hot. So I touch the tip with my piece of glass to it, and I very slowly pull it out. And you can remove a little bit if you need. You just want it kind of proportionate to you don't want it to be longer than the body. And then flash everything real well. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. And while it's hot, I can reheat it real quickly and easily. I'm using my already preheated piece of black. Touch to the tip and pull. And then remove that. Using the flame as a pair of scissors to kind of cut it. Okay, can we see that? The feet will turn back to orange. Of course, these oranges and yellows and reds and stuff kind of go black or dark when they're hot. And that's a good thing. It's an indicator that I've been flashing it. Okay, so now we need to add the beak and the eyes. It's up to you which one you add first. The easiest eyes to add are just a black dot. A cartoon eye is done, which is the second simplest eye. And lots of bird eyes are just a little black beady eye. But if you want to make these cute, a little bit maybe. So I guess depending on the look you're going for, you might want to add a dot, a cartoon eye. Unless you're going ultra realistic. If that's the look you're going for, don't add cartoon eyes. Joy Munchauer would not have cartoon eyes on her beautiful sculptural beads. But you may want to start with your rough sculptural and then learn a little bit cartoony and then get more and more detailed sculptures by carving and then taking a Joy class, if that's where you want to go with it. Joy Munchauer, I know all you guys know who she is, right? Not, look her up. I'll show you something in a minute. And then a black dot in the middle of that white dot. I'm going to melt it in a little bit more. They're popping out right now. And flash really well. In between every step, add your arms, flash. Add your eyes, flash. Melt them in evenly though. Okay. They're still a little bulging, that's okay. And did I say in the notes, the one thing I did talk about Frabel, but the one thing I took from all that was a slightly upturned head adds tenfold to the cuteness factor. So you can put his beak on top, a little raised, kind of pointed upwards, or there are other ways to make it, or you can put it right on his face. So if I touch down and pull away, leaving a dot, but I don't remove it right away. I want to pull it out to a point and then cut that point. And so I pull it to a point and then I go in the flame and pull real quickly, trying not to go back in the flame again, because if you do, that little point will ball up. So I put his beak on his face, and if I want it upturned, then I heat his neck area and then I can pose him a little bit. So I can use that to give him a slightly upturned head. there he is. Let's see. In front of the gray background kind of helps. All right, so this is the first one. We're gonna do more with this. I just wanted to warm up with this and give you guys something to think about. I'm gonna do another one. Flash it all real well. One good final flash. Insurance heat, I've heard people call it. And if you're ever gonna grab it with a tool, flash that as well. But then I heat my handle. Sometimes it'll pop right off. Whoop. Nope. And sometimes you have to melt it off. I don't want to hold it with the tools for too long, so I'm going to reattach it and reflash it. So heat his underside. Grab him, make sure you have a good grip on him. The serrated tweezers are best for this. And then remove your rod, and if you leave a little bit behind, that's okay. Get that hot, that excess glass hot, touch another piece of glass to it, and just pick it away. Heat that into a little blob, and then touch, pick it away. And you want to get off most of it, but if you can't get all of it off, or it's taking a while, try and get 90–95% of it off. And then you can flatten the rest of it into itself. Okay, so that's penguin number 1. Let me put him in the kiln. We see him? Putting him right by the door. And let's do that again. Are there any questions so far? Good morning, Terry and Marlene. I see you guys commenting. Let's do that one more time. So this orange is messy color pumpkin and tuxedo. I'm not sure what these reds are. They were whatever I had. And I'm not sure what the white is either. I'm sorry. I don't know my soft glass colors that well. I don't know all the borosilica colors that well. There are so many of them now. And I've been using the same ones for years. I know the ones I like. Occasionally I'll try a new one. There's some nice new greens that we never had before. So center you a little bit better. So good morning, Barbara. Okay, let's do that one more time, especially if some of y'all are just getting into the room. I made a penguin. It looks kind of like this guy. And I'm gonna make another one now, and maybe we'll give him a little hat. Because I would do the March of the Penguins, I would have people want 10 of them all doing different things or looking differently, or some looking up, some bigger, some smaller, some with Santa hats because it was 'tis the season. But yeah, the penguins were fun and quick and easy, and I would sell them by the tin. So, all right. Still have some of this tuxedo left. I told you I was going to show you another way to kind of ball it up a little bit quicker. So flash your rod. And I'm on a Nortel Aero for those of you that are just getting here. All these videos will be in the group afterwards. They will upload in the highest resolution that Facebook allows, which is like 720 or something, which is like my acceptable limit. Because any less, and I can tell it's grainy. So please let me know if you're having any video or audio problems other than your own connection issues. And let's hope for good connection on this end, but the program I'm using will record them in their entirety. So I just folded that over. I hadn't melted it into a ball. So now when I melt this into a ball, it'll be twice as big. So I feel like it's a little bit quicker. If I want it to be 3 times as big, you know, if I know that's how much glass I'm going to use for the ball of my body, and I fold it over again. And then you can round it out. Another little thing that I do is I attach a rod to the end and I twist it once it's ready to be rounded, and that kind of makes everything come together nicely. I feel like it turns it into a ball quicker. So get it hot and then actually start to twist. You want to melt it in most of the way before you do that and have it hot enough to just do that real quick, because you don't want to trap any air where there's little creases and stuff. But now I very quickly feel like I have a nice ball about the same size as my last one. So once it cools off, I want to remove one of the 2 handles, and I'm kind of back where I started, but what I feel like was much quicker. I'd love to hear if you guys have other opinions. So to do a belly, like on this guy, you just put a dot of white or whatever color you want. You can draw other shapes. You can do a little heart or something like that. Now that I've been working for a few minutes, let me cut on the ventilation. The camera's supposed to cancel out that sound. It usually does. Let me know if otherwise. But I just want to put a big dot, and that will define my belly. So smush it down real hard. And again, kind of that circular melt off. So now it looks like he's got a marshmallow on his belly. And you can leave that raised and puffy. It's kind of cute. Or you can melt it in all the way smooth. Okay, so this is just our first demo. This is just our warm-up. We've got other little things to show you here, but we're gonna move into some more advanced things. We'll review a fish from the last aquarium class, for those of you that have done that one. Do it differently though. And we're gonna do a seahorse, we're gonna do a shark. It's my favorite one. Okay, so I melted it in. It's nice and smooth and flush. So it has a white belly. And then I'm going to attach my 2 feet. Pumpkin. Get it hot slowly. If I don't want to waste any glass, I can pick that up and use that. And attach 2 little dots for feet. I do these demos usually a couple times because they're quick and because repetition is really important in learning. So hopefully if you see me do it 2 or 3 times, you'll sit down and make 2 or 3 in a row. You'll get much more out of it than making one and then taking a break and then making another and taking a break. That's perfectly fine for these first ones, just so you can like get your feet wet and say you did it. But at some point you want to sit down and do a session and really figure things out. And if it doesn't come out perfect or as planned, just tell yourself, like, you can get that far next time. Maybe you'll get a step further. And, what do you need to do a little differently? You're gonna have to take a step back and be a little critical and reassess, diagnose. So 2 dots of pumpkin. Any yellow or orange or any color, purple, whatever you're feeling will do. Okay, and then I flatten a little forward. You can have this going out to the side a little bit. It doesn't have to go all the way forward. Remember, these are cartoony. These are simple. We're gonna work our way towards more detail today though. Okay, so then I attach my handle to the bottom. Remove your tuxedo rod, leaving enough for the head. Stickers can be a little bit of a pain. You can get them off with the razor blade. You can soak them in water, and some brands will fall right off after a few minutes. Or you can burn them off, but they sometimes leave a little scuzz behind. I usually soak them in water, and that will get most of them off. I'm not sure about these messy color ones. So now I want to flash and add some glass on either side for his 2 wings. Add it up high near the neck so that you can flatten and pull it down and not have it be longer than the body. So Frable's the artist that I was working for in Atlanta that I mentioned in the notes. If you don't know his work, look him up. He's really amazing. He's one of the grandfathers of the contemporary lampwork class movement for sure. He's been doing it longer than just about anybody currently working. He lives in Atlanta, and he's a really really good guy. Basically retired at this point. Last I heard, he was working 1 day a week. He sold Frable glass to a Dutch company, so they still make stuff. There's still a dozen artists that work there making his designs. They have a designer on staff for larger projects. They do botanical gardens and that sort of stuff. Oh yeah, it's good when you see me drop it, right? I did that on purpose. But these things happen, and oh, I'm out of practice with the soft glass. I'm working too much borosilicate. I need to get back in. I love working soft glass. It's what I started with. But yeah, boro teaches bad habits. I feel like you learn a lot more going the other direction, because you learn all the flashing and all that, and then you can throw all that out the window when you learn borosilicate. If you learn borosilicate, you never really learn good flashing and why. And, you have a higher success rate, so it doesn't teach you. It doesn't act like most glasses act. So there's good and bad, but I feel like when you're learning, the people that do soft glass first are easier to transfer over to boro and vice versa. Really all they have to do is turn it up. And flash. Hey guys. So now I'm going to do his beak. Push and pull. Pull it out to the length you want and very slowly cut it, almost using the edge of the flame, not even actually in the flame. And then flash. So now we're going to give him a hat. So I start by just adding a little dot of white on his head. Medium-sized dot. And then I flatten it. And then I go around with my tweezers and kind of wrinkle the edge. To make it look like fluff. And then you flash really well. While I get my red hot for that hat itself. Not sure what red this is. It's like a brick red. Maybe coral? Probably wrong. I'm in the habit of removing the end. Oftentimes when you cut it, there'll be a little bit of oil from your hands or micro scratches that bubble up from where you cut it. Dirt and oil can get in those little micro scratches too, and so always nip the end. So make a blob enough for your hat, and stick it on there, and wait. Let it kind of fuse. And very slowly pull it out. If anybody's ever made a chili pepper, it's very similar. Pull it out. Just kind of let it loop over on its own. We can make it look pretty in a second, but we want to flash. It's a little longer than I feel like I want, so I'm going to remove a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little black poof ball right on the ends. Flash really well. And they love to fall off right at the end, right? Okay, so I wanted to show you at least one demo with Moretti glass, well, with soft glass. So I hope that was cool. then you can kind of use the tips of your tweezers to make that more look like a poof ball too, not as natural looking. And if you want to bend his head and his neck, now's the time. Okay, so I'm going to remove them by flashing. Gave a little tap. You know, there was already a crack there and it had fallen off before, so I knew it would come right off. Eat that little bleb that's left behind. Kind of remove it. And then once you've gotten, 95% of it, you can re-flatten it. Okay, can we see him in the video? Good. There he is, you can see him. Alright, and I want to get him in a kiln as quick as I can. I'll take the